Happy Wing Wednesday, everybody. Welcome inside the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Bellevue University. Keep up to date on all the championship action happening on Bellevue's campus by downloading the BU Bruins app to your smartphone tonight. Great show lined up for you. Clemson and Notre Dame have locked up a 12-year schedule. I'm going to tell you why that's good news for the Big Ten at 6:15. Bob Williams of Williams Law will join us via the StreamYard tonight to talk about can you sue the NFL as John Doe? We'll talk about that at 6:30. We'll buy or sell on several different topics tonight, which Brody Heideman, I need to send to you, including Cam Rising that's finally retired from football. Somehow not as a professional athlete. The Hockey Corner is back at 7:15.
You know it.
John Walker from the Omaha World Herald will join us to talk more Alan Huss, Greg McDermott, and all things Creighton basketball. You can join us at 402-951-1620. Don't forget to punch in on the night shift. You can join us on Twitter or on YouTube. Leave a comment to join in on the discussion. Also, it is a Wing Wednesday, as I mentioned. You can go over to our Twitter page or our Facebook page, like our page, follow our page, retweet the Cunningham's video of their wings, and we're going to enter you into a drawing to win a $25 gift card to Cunningham's in Blackstone tonight. Tom Chattel of Omaha.com, the Omaha World Herald, wrote today saying that he's not going to make his prediction quite yet, but he has a feeling that the majority of people in the know in Nebraska are going to have Nebraska at a 9-3 season this year.
He's wrong. 10-2.
As we all know, Dan Campen has placed all of his chips on Nebraska going undefeated and winning the national championship or something like that. But it got me to thinking about, it's not quite schedule season, so we're not going to give our wins and loss predictions here, but what this schedule looks like. On paper, Nebraska should be favored in those first three games.
Should be.
Probably by double digits in the latter two against Akron, and spoiler alert, they show back up in the show later tonight, and Houston Christian. They might even be double digits in the first three games as a favorite. Now, opening games against a conference or against conference opponents hasn't gone well. Opening games against marquee opponents has not gone well in Nebraska's history.
Sure.
So it's hard to lock that game against Cincinnati in as an automatic win. I think Nebraska could at least be a 9.5-point favorite in that game. Michigan will not have their head coach for the game against Nebraska. That game also in Lincoln. And then the Michigan State game is Michigan State's heading into year 2 of their head coach. They went 5-7 a year ago. Then you go to Maryland, who's 4-8. Minnesota sneakily won 8 games last year. I forgot that was a thing. And that team actually looks improved this season. So that's going to be a really interesting matchup also in Minneapolis. Northwestern 4-8 a year ago. USC 6-6 in the regular season and then beat A&M in the Vegas Bowl. You lost to UCLA last year on your turf. Now you have to go to LA where UCLA is located. People forget. That team went 5-7 a year. We all know what Penn State did a year ago. And then Iowa at home. You only play 4 teams in your 12-team schedule that finished above 500 in the regular season last year. With that being said, does that make this the most favorable schedule that Nebraska's had in quite a long time?
We thought that about last year's schedule, Jimmy.
Sure.
Honestly.
Started 5-1.
Yeah.
And as Pat McAfee pointed out on Raw on Monday, Nebraska finished the season really hot. Those are words that actually came out of Pat McAfee's mouth, by the way.
Okay. Well, I don't know that it's the most favorable schedule. I think we thought last year was pretty much as easy as it was going to get, given just the location of the games, the opponents. Nobody thought Colorado was going to be any good. And Colorado, maybe the best win that Nebraska got last year.
Oh, without a doubt.
Oh, for sure.
Easily.
So, I mean, Indiana, like nobody thought much of Indiana with a new coach coming in.
Google them.
They ended up being much better than expected. So it's just
that might be the understatement of a century.
It's so hard at this point of the season to say, oh, this is a very favorable schedule. You don't know what's going to happen. Like one of those teams could jump up and all of a sudden be a top 10 team by the time you play them. You know, you don't know. So yes, at the outset, it looks very favorable. Is it the most favorable schedule Nebraska's had in the last 5 years? I'm not comfortable saying that.
When we talk about year 3 of Matt Rhule, there's obviously a lot of magic and pixie dust that has been sold as a bill of goods to us when he got this job, right? But I think it's important to remember that this iteration of year 3 of Matt Rhule is completely different than the way he built it at Temple, the way that he built it at Baylor. Because the way they did it then is they brought in a ton of young recruits. developed them, got tier 3, took their lumps, had a ton of playing experience, got the big game feel out of the way, and handled situations because they'd been in it a bunch of times. That is not what this team is. Yes, you have a second-year starting quarterback that happens to be a 5-star prospect. You're returning your leading rusher from a year ago, but you have brand new wide receivers. You've done a ton of changes.
You have a brand new defensive line, essentially.
You have a ton of changes in the defensive line room. You have a ton of changes in the coaching staff. This is not a glued together, been through it, in the trenches for 2 previous seasons team. With that being said, Matt Rule has had 1 winning season in 2 years in Nebraska. What is the minimum amount of wins that he has to have next season to avoid the hot seat conversation?
7.
Yeah.
You think 7 doesn't put him on the hot seat?
Regular season. If they go 7-5 and win the bowl game and go 8-5, I think it's fine. There's no hot seat for Matt Rule.
Yeah. I don't think there's going to be a point. I think they
unless they win 4 or fewer, there's no hot seat
Ooh,
talk.
they don't make a bowl
4.
game. They don't win a bowl game next year. They don't make a bowl game next year.
Yeah.
He is firmly on the hot seat. There
Nope.
may be
No.
discussions. No,
Really?
No
No.
way.
So he would make 1 bowl game in 3 seasons at a school that has made 1 bowl game in 9 years. You don't think that puts him back on the hot seat?
No.
Not getting fired, but he has to win in year 4, and I'm talking 8 to 9 games to save his job. That's a hot seat discussion. It might not be on fire. It's very, very warm. And specifically, how he loses. Now, the only game I think you can absolutely pencil in as an automatic loss next year is Penn State, because they're exactly what we just talked about Nebraska not being. You got a ton of experience. You got an experienced head coach. You know what Penn State is. Everybody else on that schedule, like, that matters too. Like, how flimsy that schedule looks and how it's perceived preseason, I don't care what anybody says, is going to matter at the end of the season. Now, if you lose those last 4, if you lose to USC, UCLA, Penn State, and then you lose to Iowa again, they're going to be – I don't care what the record is before that. There's going to be people calling for his job if he finishes again with a winless October.
I think you have to split the fan base and the administration into 2 different conversations.
Okay.
And
I'm with you guys. I don't think any way he gets fired next season.
No.
That's not what I'm asking.
I think that if they don't win 7 games next year, the fan base is going to be in full rage mode.
This is a time where you're asking your fans for more than you ever have
Yes.
to.
If they don't win 7 games next year, I don't think the administration is even considering moving on. Not even the thought has not even entered their mind. I don't think there's any way.
I would just like to quickly point out, we all understood what you said, Jimmy.
I cannot believe you guys are both in lockstep here.
It's because I don't think he's on the hot seat.
Yeah.
I don't think he's on the hot seat right now either.
Because with the way that college football is rolling nowadays, it's going to take 5 years to get a program to a national championship
Mhm.
minimum. Because you have
Didn't take Indiana very long to make the playoff.
We're not talking about a national
Yeah.
championship either. We're talking about winning enough games to qualify for a bowl game.
okay, well then maybe we should actually have a standard for this program that is legitimate instead of going, we just want to win a bowl game. That would be wonderful.
Okay, so
Wouldn't it be nice to go back to the Pinstripe Bowl again?
Yeah, it really would to go to
Uh-huh.
a bowl game 2 years in a row.
yeah, it would be fantastic. It hasn't happened in a decade.
You know what would be great? Sure, go to a bowl game this year. Next year, college football playoff. Year 5, national championship. That is what we want. And after what I saw at Ohio State last year, I have full faith in Matt Rule, this coaching staff, and Dylan Raiola that they can actually stand up in the big moment. It's just getting tripped up in those last 4 games, like you pointed out, Jimmy, when they think that they can softball toss it in and just
a good point.
slide into home with a nice, easy October where they're going to get upset by someone, and you don't want that to have to happen.
Dan, I hate to bring up the past, but Scott Frost did pretty well against Ohio State. Never beat them. They were super competitive in a lot of those games.
Yeah.
Did you feel great about those about those teams?
Best 3-9 team that we ever saw
Yeah.
in Nebraska, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
Maybe the world has ever seen.
2018, they lost 36-31 in Columbus. And I think that mentality right there, the 2 things you said, the minimalistic mentality, we've got to get to a bowl game, but also the we looked really good against the Michigans, Ohio States, Penn States of the world. We didn't win, but we looked pretty good. I think that's a dangerous road to go down.
It is a dangerous road to go down, but
Because in the end, all that matters is wins and losses.
here's what I'll counter with. Realism. Nebraska isn't the program that it once was. And look, that's not to say that you can't turn it around in a heartbeat. It's been done, and we've seen it done. Saw it done in this conference last year.
Yeah.
Indiana was a joke, and then all of a sudden they're in the CFP. So it can be done. It can be done quickly. The issue is that sometimes it takes patience. Sometimes those fast turnarounds are actually fool's gold. They don't last. Sometimes it's not a good idea to get ahead of your skis and get like really, really good, really fast.
Man, you hate Kurt Cignetti.
I'm not talking about Kurt Cignetti specifically. There are a bunch of schools, right? Like, look at coaches who have these great seasons at a lower level school and then go and take over a big program and cannot figure it out. Scott Frost is a prime example. Dave Aranda. How's he done at Baylor? Has that been fun?
Remember when everybody wanted him to be the next head coach at Nebraska? Yours truly included.
I'm just saying, like, you have to be very careful. Like, we are in this, Ritalin and Red Bull society where everything has to be instant. And sometimes instant's not the best. Sometimes you have to lay the foundation so that when the building gets tall, it doesn't fall over catastrophically.
Drink a nice cherry Coke, folks.
Coke Zero.
The best.
So I'm not necessarily worried and not ready to start having hot seat conversations, because this is the trap that you get into when you start saying that if our coach doesn't win right now, he's fired me. Like, this
isn't right now, though. This is year 3. This is almost an entire full recruiting cycle.
Yeah, and almost is doing a ton of work in that sentence. It's not been a full recruiting cycle. He's on year 3. Like, it used to be that no one would ever fire a coach before 4 years. Ever. You just didn't do that.
Well, the transfer portal's changed that too. A lot of things has changed that. Back to Kurt Cignetti for a second. The thing I'm most interested about Indiana over the next 2 years, how does it start to look when those JMU products are gone and it's not plug and play, and you've got Kurt Cignetti's system on tape, and obviously the talent of the Big Ten probably catches up a little bit. Like, it's one thing to get year 1 of a coach that's got a dynamic system, but when that coach could bring in players from the system to plug and play, like, that helps a ton along the way.
It does, yes. Having a bunch of players who already know the expectations and can bring the culture with them, which is something Matt Rule didn't have.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make here.
He didn't have those key culture pieces to set the standard. And by all accounts, the standard was pretty bad under the previous regime. So you have to go through and delete a lot of those bad habits, cut the dead weight, get the malcontents out of the program, and that process can take some time. If you're not bringing in the guys from another program who can help you set that standard, it has to be built over time.
I'm trying to think of one program in the country that a coach would not be on the hot seat if they only made one bowl game in 3 years.
Dion? I mean,
No, I think he would too.
Yeah, he probably would.
I like, the buyout is going to help his cause if this is the case, obviously. But I mean, even Trev Alberts said it about Scott Frost after year 3. We don't have a ton of data that would prove running this back for a 4th season would do anybody that it's going to work. And no, listen, I think if they go 2-10 next year, he's not fired. But if they don't make a bowl game next season, the 93,000 head coaches in the stands are going to get really loud, and the pressure turns up on the administration at that university every time that happens. Right, wrong, or indifferent, somebody's hand gets shown every time.
I don't look, and again, this is where the conversation splits. I don't think you're wrong. I think the fans will be tremendously upset. I don't think the people inside the building in North Stadium are going to give a second thought to bringing him back for a fourth year.
With that being said, I think Nebraska's going to be pretty good this year. Probably ain't even got to worry about this discussion. But if you want to hear it back, listen to it at SoundCloud.com/AfterHours1620. It was brought to you by our friends at Allo Business. Do you want to go 12-0? You can do it with brand new internet service with Allo Fiber. Head over to AlloFiber.com where you're going to talk to a real life person right here in the state of Nebraska. That's right, 24/7 customer support from live local techs. Head over to AlloFiber.com and get out of the Stone Age. Get new internet and cable services in your area today. We'll be right back. Clemson, Notre Dame, 12-year contract. Why does it help the Big Ten? I'll tell you on the other side of the break. 1620 The Zone.
Hey, everybody. John Schreiner here for Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear. How's your golf game? How's your golf gear game? Do they match? Well, even if they don't, you need to get your gear game right. Even if you can't hit the ball very far, you can show up in the best Roan golf gear on the course and make everybody jealous. The new Roan golf gear at Jerry Ryan is spectacular. Feels great, looks great, and you will walk out on the course feeling like $1 million. And you know what they say about golf? It's more a mental game than a physical game. Get your mental game right by wearing the best golf gear in town. You can get it at 78th and Dodge. Jerry Ryan's got you covered, quite literally, in the new Roan Golf Polos. Great designs, great feel. You don't want to miss it. Get there before they sell it all. 78th and Dodge, right in the middle of the town. Tell them After Hours sent you. Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear, dressing Omaha for over 50 years.
6:21 on a Thursday night. Oh, it's a Wednesday night. Wednesday night edition of the After Hours
only
Lounge. It's only
Wednesday.
Wednesday. I almost said Friday too. That was really backtracking. Hey, we are brought to you by Bellevue University. You can download the BU Bruins app to keep up to date on all the championship action happening on Bellevue's campus tonight. Jim.
Thanks,
can't-
Cunningham's.
You can get a great craft beer.
It's Wing
craft beer
Wednesday
at
after all.
Cunningham's. Thanks, Brody. That's what happens when you put a high school kid in charge of the show. That things will happen. You know who's not in charge of Notre Dame is a high school student, Brody Heidemann. You don't run Notre Dame's athletic department, but they made a
Since when?
great decision
I do.
today, and they signed a 12-year series contract, home and home, with the Clemson Tigers. And to me, this is such a flex by Clemson too, because remember the ACC doesn't split out even pay like the Big Ten does. Not everyone gets the same piece of the pie. It's based on the numbers, the eyeballs, the traction you bring in, and then the eyes that you put on the product. Now you get the Notre Dame audience to help your cause if you're Clemson. Plus the SEC is talking about moving to 9 games, and there's an off chance that South Carolina may have to pull out of the Clemson rivalry if they make it mandatory to play that last game of the year against an SEC opponent. This gives you a technically non-ACC school to flex and get their audience when it's one of the biggest number getters in the entire country in Notre Dame. So you automatically get a bigger piece of the pie, and everybody else around the ACC is taking notes because you've also heard from both the Florida State and the Miami athletic director that they're actively trying to do the same thing. Now, Notre Dame has to meet a minimum of 5 games per year against the ACC to keep the status quo with all of their other ACC-affiliated sports, a.k.a. everybody other than football. So this is just their way of not having to deal with flexing their schedule. You already know who your opponents are. It gets mapped out for you. And by the way, you make your best friends with the power players in the ACC along the way, too.
I'm going to tell you why this is better for Notre Dame than it is Clemson. This entire scheduling agreement flies in the face of the path to success given the 12-team and probably very soon 16-team college football playoff.
Agreed.
The committee sent a very strong message last year that it doesn't matter who you play, only that you win. Right? That was the message that was sent to the teams who were selected and the ones who weren't. This is much better for Notre Dame to lock this up, to have a marquee opponent for the next 12 years. Why? Because fewer and fewer Power 5 teams are going to look outside their conference to play other Power 5 teams.
Mm-hmm.
And Notre Dame is a de facto Power 5 team, right? They're not in a conference, but they're in that conversation. They're at that level.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to get increasingly harder for Notre Dame to schedule marquee games because nobody's going to want to play a good team in their non-conference. This is far better for Notre Dame than it is for Clemson because at least they know for the next 12 years, we have Clemson on the schedule.
Well, I'm going to push back a little bit then because they have to play 5 ACC schools no matter what.
Sure.
So wouldn't it be smart for Notre Dame to book 5 games against Duke, Wake Forest, the non-powerhouse Power 5 schools? Because you're going to play USC and Michigan probably.
Yeah,
one
but
of the
those
other.
schools aren't going to want to play Notre Dame either.
You know what Notre Dame needs?
Hmm.
Some Ivy League schools. Get the smart schools out there.
So the Ivy League actually can't play that kind of schedule.
Yep.
Well, find a way.
Well, here's the thing though. It's like you got to find a way. Dan, just find a way.
It's not.
Find a way.
It's not part
it's
of the Ivy League's
it's-
bylaws.
find
It's
a
not,
way.
Hey,
it's not possible, but find a way.
let's just find a way. You
Yeah.
ever hear about
Wouldn't you
Yale
love-
and Harvard going to a bowl game?
Wouldn't you love
They're
Harvard versus
FCS
Notre
teams.
Dame?
I would love Harvard versus Notre Dame actually.
Who's smarter?
But it's really surprising to me because I think it's only a matter of days, not weeks, before you hear a similar deal with Miami and Florida State, and it makes me wonder: are some schools who feel like, man, we win 10, we're probably in, more worried about eyes on the product versus winning and getting to the college football playoff and revenue dollars, or are they worried about winning championships? Because on paper, and listen, Matt Rule has been very vocal about, hey, we got to play some non-helmet games to get some wins if we want to talk about playing for a championship. And
My
now,
point exactly.
and now Notre Dame is also probably going to play Navy, and they're going to have some built-in wins that they traditionally win along the way. in theory, but
And the non-Power 5 schools are going to be looking for money games.
yes,
That's how the only way that they're going to compete. My point here is that if you're Duke, if you're Wake Forest, if you're Virginia, why do you want Notre Dame on your schedule?
because you're probably not going to the playoff anyway.
But on the off chance that you catch lightning in a bottle one year and you win 11 games,
And your only loss is to Notre Dame, you don't think you're in?
no, I'm saying, like, if you have a soft schedule,
Yeah.
and you win all three of your non-cons with you're playing an FCS team and two non-Power 5s, right? Why would you sub one of those out for a Notre Dame when you could win 11 games, but now you only won 10 and you're on the outside looking in?
I agree if we're talking about Maryland. I agree if we're talking about Northwestern. I agree if we're talking about Vanderbilt. In the ACC, you need to have more eyes on your product.
Sure.
You're not getting that with Virginia versus VCU in football.
But I think the enticement of getting those CFP dollars is going to outweigh all of that.
That's a big gamble, though. Like, I hear you, and like the way you should think about it from a coaching and a player standpoint, I totally agree with you. That's not who's
And
making
you don't think
these
that they
decisions,
will
though.
be thinking about it that way?
No, I do, but the people that are making these decisions are thinking about making money. Because a lot of things, like, think about everything that had to go right for Indiana last year. A lot of things had to line up for them to have that season. Now,
Outside looking in, honest to goodness, what's the benefit for Clemson to play Notre Dame?
more money. That's it. That is the only thing that I think benefits the Clemson Tigers.
But Clemson's going to have more eyeballs than everyone else in the ACC anyway.
And marquee
Mm.
non-con game.
Miami.
Yeah.
I think Miami and Florida State outdraw them, actually. But for football, anyway.
Miami fans are extremely fickle.
From a national standpoint,
I'll hear Florida State. I'll listen to that. Miami, no.
they had the number one pick in the NFL draft last year.
Sure.
You think they Clemson outdrew Miami last year with Cam Ward? If both of those programs are good, more people are watching Miami.
If they're both good, yes. I don't know though. I don't know because, like, honestly, Jimmy, there's a huge recency bias with fan bases.
Sure, I'll hear that.
And Clemson's won national titles
Let me make my point
since Miami has.
about why I think this is good for the Big Ten. There seems to be this race between the Big Ten and the ACC to get the power school, or the Big Ten and the SEC, excuse me, to get the power schools. And everybody's chasing Notre Dame. I don't think that's very private information. If Notre Dame could find a way to keep all of their other schools in the or other teams in the ACC, basketball, women's basketball, all that stays at ACC brokered. But they could get their football team to play in the Big Ten. Hey, we'll still do 5 games. We'll do 5 games. We'll see if we can play 8 Big Ten school games. Well, I guess that'd be 6.
That'd be too, yeah.
Yeah, but it allows you to play Michigan and play USC and play Michigan State while keeping your ACC allegiance. Maybe not necessarily be a Big Ten school, but have ACC and Big Ten affiliation while maintaining your independency. I think that's going to be huge for them.
Yeah,
But to your point, the Big Ten schools got to want to play them, and if everybody's following Matt Rule's lead, that's not going to be the case.
yeah. The only way, see, I still like Notre Dame's just playing the waiting game, man. I really feel like
Why wouldn't you?
they are
Mhm.
just waiting for the big split. They know they're going to be in the top 60 or 64 or 50 or whatever it is. And then there's going to be, mandated regional groupings. That's what we think.
Yeah.
That
Because that would only make sense.
right. And then they are not going to affiliate themselves with a conference totally. They've already got a sort of half-hearted affiliation with the ACC. I just don't see them jumping on the Big Ten or the SEC because they're making as much money as any school in those conferences anyway.
Right.
So, like, for them to jump into one of those conferences and lose their solo TV rights, I don't think it makes much sense. Now, if the big split happens and they have to join a regional affiliation to stay in the top tier, they'll do that. But for now, Notre Dame is just they are standing pat and counting their dollars.
But the one thing that this does do is if the split does happen, and you do need a key marquee matchup in the non-con, and you do choose to join the Big Ten of the SEC, you have that game built in with Clemson, which is why, like
Sure.
I said, I think there's conversations being had with those other schools, and if you hear that things didn't go well, or you don't get Notre Dame versus Miami, or you don't get Notre Dame versus Florida State, I think that should tell you some other things are happening behind the scenes too.
Yeah, and like when I first saw this news break that they had agreed to this 12-year deal, I was initially surprised, and then the more I thought about it, the less surprised I actually was. And I already laid out the case of why I think it's beneficial for Notre Dame and why they would want to do it. It was hard for me to understand why Clemson wanted to do it, and then I remembered who Clemson's coach is, and he doesn't necessarily always operate in the modern context,
Well,
right?
if you're reading the tea leaves, though, if you're looking for things like what does this mean, why is Notre Dame that needs to play a 5-game ACC schedule anyway signing 12-year deals with ACC schools? I think this tells you there's a lot of moving parts going on right now. This
Yeah.
may be domino number one. By the way.
I think it's just it's Dabo saying he wants to do things the old way when you had to have a marquee non-conference matchup or even two.
Right,
And
but it's a two-party thing. It's not just Clemson making this decision.
no, it's absolutely not. And like I think I've laid out the case of why I think it's good for Notre Dame. But for Clemson, I think it's more Dabo Swinney saying, like, shunning the modern way that things are being done, where we're going to play 3 softies and then get into conference play, and saying, like, no, we're going to play a hard schedule every year, which honestly, like, yeah, like in some years it can be beneficial. You can have, if you have a really good team, they're going to be battle tested by the time you get to the playoff. If you have a mid-range team that could qualify to the back end of the playoff, you might lose those games and then be on the outside looking in. So, I mean, like from a strategic perspective, it makes more sense right now to not load up your non-con.
John Doe is suing the NFL. Can
Gross.
he win? We'll ask Bob Williams of Williams Law on the other side of the break. If you missed this segment, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It was brought to you by Cunningham's Pub. 2 great locations, the Blackstone District and Old Mill. You want free wings? You want free beer from Blackstone tonight? You know how you can do it. You can head over to our Twitter page at afterhours1620. Retweet the GIF of Cunningham's Wings. We're going to do a drawing to win a $25 gift card to the Blackstone location. You don't need a free gift card to head down there tonight. Go down and enjoy happy hour. Go down and enjoy a beautiful Wednesday night here in Omaha. The garage doors open. The windows are open. It's Cunningham's Pub. Stop down tonight. Grab dinner and drinks. We'll be right back with Bob Williams of Williams Law on the other side of the break. 1620, The Zone. 6:39 on a Wing Wednesday edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Bellevue University. Head over to bellevue.edu, register for classes, get your college experience locally at Bellevue University. No classes on Friday. Majority of your classes done online. Check out bellevue.edu for more details today. Bob Williams of Williams Law now joins us here on the After Hours Lounge via the StreamYard. See him, his beautiful face in the YouTube chat tonight. Check out the night shift there. Bob,
Hey guys,
good evening.
gentlemen, great to be here. How's everybody doing?
Better than you. How are the kids feeling? Everybody doing all right?
You're trying to make down the home stretch last few weeks without anybody being sick, and we're failing miserably right now. But hey, summer's not far away, man.
Hey, mine stayed home from school today too, so there's something out there.
Yeah,
it's
kids
ridiculous
don't
right now.
stay either.
Wow, big surprise.
We're replacing Florida man with Atlanta man tonight, and Atlanta man is suing the NFL for emotional distress, which led me to believe that a lot of people are going to be filing suit against the NFL every Sunday going forward if this guy wins, but not for the reason most people would assume that he's filing for distress against the league. He's filing for distress against the league. He's filing as John Doe, so he's not putting his real name out there, and is seeking $100 million in damages for Shedeur Sanders falling in the NFL draft. We'll get into his reason why. My question, first out of the gate, is can somebody sue an entity like the NFL based on its parties around it, i.e. the owners and teams making decisions that aren't necessarily enforced by the league or the umbrella parent company?
Well, and thanks for having me back again, guys. The answer to your question is yes. You can sue anyone for any reason at any point in time in any jurisdiction. The real
Clearly.
question is, do you have any merit to your claim, and is it being used as a sword of some sort? In this case, wow. News from the stupid, news from the weird, news of, what's the crazy case du jour, and this is certainly it for the week, right?
Do we have any indication that the plaintiff in this case, his name is actually Shedeur Smanders?
Right. That's the first thing that popped into my mind too, John, is okay, well, who's the proxy or the surrogate that's suing on behalf of the Sanders family? And I can tell you that while we joke about that here online or on the stream here, he would actually have better standing, Mr. Sanders,
Yeah.
to sue than Mr. John Doe, who, again, as you referenced, he did file it under an anonymous name. This is now in federal district court for the Northern District of Georgia, and this is out of Atlanta. So it's a federal case, and one thing he's trying to bring into this, what's our favorite act, the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. There are some assertions and allegations in there that there was some antitrust violations because he's alleging there was some collusion by all of these ownership groups or owners from the NFL with the NFL, which affects commerce. And I think that's one of the bases he's using to get into federal district court, because first of all, you have to look at the who, what, where, and why, right? Like anytime you look at a case, you look at the who. We've got the who is this Mr. Doe versus the NFL.
Allegedly.
Okay, right. You've got the where. This is in the jurisdiction in which he lives, where he probably viewed this event on live TV, where he's saying he quote unquote suffered this emotional distress. And you have the when, you've got the date, and then the why here is the cause of action. And again, he's alleging infliction of emotional distress. Now, what I was unable to discern is whether it was intentional or negligent infliction of emotional distress. There's a few other things he's alleging to try to support this to get it into the federal court again, which was the antitrust claim. Otherwise, I think he would be relegated to sue in state court. But again, we can fan back out to the micro versus macro and go through this. But this is just utterly ridiculous from my point of view, and a waste of the court's time and probably the NFL's time here. And yeah, maybe he's doing it to be funny, maybe he's doing it to get some kicks, but why not put your name on this thing, brand this thing yours if you're going to do it?
Yeah, Shiloh Sanders.
My question involves the term emotional distress, and we know that in these kind of cases, well, as in every case of this nature, the burden of proof is on the plaintiff, right? He has to prove somehow that he was emotionally harmed by the actions of the NFL. How do you go about proving something like that?
Okay, so when you're talking emotional distress as a basis for a claim, there's really 3 or 4 elements or things you're looking at. First of all, the behavior that's allegedly causing the emotional distress has to be quote unquote extreme and outrageous.
Right.
One tier. The next tier is it's got to be intentional or reckless, and that gets into the whether it's a intentional or negligent infliction. But there has to be some intentionality with the actions of the person or the party that's inflicting this. There has to be a connection between the cause and the effect too, right? There has to be some kind of nexus there. And then the last part is damages. Well, it's looking like he's seeking an apology from the NFL, an acknowledgement that there's collusion, and presumably, when we talk damages, when we're talking plaintiffs, civil cases, damages are really one of 2 things. They're either monetary, or you're looking to have somebody start doing something or stop doing something, injunctive relief. And he put a price tag of $100 million, as he's holding his lip, $1 million on this thing, which sounds outrageous as well. But to answer your question more specifically, John, what things can we ask rhetorically would help educate a trier of fact, which is the court in this scenario, or a jury, to connect those things to show that this cause created this damage, right? This monetary damage. If this guy's alleging emotional distress, what kind of things what would common sense tell us things that would show and evidence emotional distress? Such things as, well, maybe he now needs to seek mental health therapy. Maybe he's not able to sleep, not able to work. Now, clearly, when you're talking about presenting evidence to support these claims, for example, I've handled numerous emotional distress claims on both the plaintiff and defense side in state court. And anytime there's an assertion of this, there is 100% correlation that there's going to be some type of medical or mental health therapy, some type of evidence introduced into the court to support the claim, to show that this is verifiable. There's a diagnosis. There's a doctor, psychiatrist, clinical psychologist, somebody to evidence that there's a connection between what this person's symptoms are or were with whatever the startling or extreme outrageous event was. And back again to our original piece of our conversation, we talked about standing. Standing is the lawful or legal capacity for a party to bring suit or to have a suit brought against it. Now, again, this seems from the news of the weird news of the outrageous. Is he suing because he's saying he has happened to have his TV on and, wow, I'm just a very engaged and very supportive Colorado fan, and it's ripped my heart out? I mean, I think you and I and several of us would have claims against the University of Nebraska for some things that happened a few times I witnessed on TV over the last 20 years. I don't know about you guys, but I can definitely say that for myself. But again, he's saying as watching this television show, most of the cases that I've seen where there has been some success with the infliction of emotional distress, there's clearly from the party that the defendant has done something that's very specific to the plaintiff, not just hey, they happen to be driving by and saw a billboard or a TV show or just some randomness of event that led to this. I think this is a foolish lawsuit by Mr. Doe. I think he's doing this to waste people's time, to bring some notoriety, maybe to, what a lot of people are calling some type of collusive behavior by NFL owners, which, as a complete side note, maybe you guys have done this segment, you probably did last week, but that's outrageous in its own right to me to think that there was some master collusive behavior amongst all these teams while they're actively doing this draft to, shut him out from being selected. I think people were disinterested. It snowballed. It is what it is what it is. It's unfortunate for Mr. Sanders. He's still going to have a chance to prove his worth to the league. But as far as the viability of this lawsuit, I think you can slam the door on Mr. Doe. I think the attorneys for the NFL will file some type of motion to dismiss for failure to state a claim in which relief can be granted for basis such of the standing, which we just talked about, as well as whether there's the subject matter can be heard in that court if there is a federal question with regard to the Sherman Act, the collusiveness that they're alleging.
Bob, you'll be happy to know we have some breaking news in the House settlement, which we're going to get to next. But before we get to we're catching up with Bob Williams of Williams Law, criminal, civil, personal. If you're dealing with any litigation, he and his team are happy to walk you through the process. When we talk about lawsuits like this with Shedeur Sanders, it almost closes the gentleman's case based on the fact that he did get drafted, right?
Well, I mean, certainly there's that could be considered. I mean, it's fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth on the list of reasons that this
Right.
should be kicked out. But yes, ultimately, Mr. Sanders did get drafted by a team. He's going to get a chance to get his shot. And it's kind of funny. I think was it last week I was on, or 2 weeks ago I was on. We were joking about the depth chart for the Browns, and we'd even forgotten until I kind of sparked my brain. Oh yeah, Kenny Pickett's even in there. So I mean, talk about an outrageously long list for your quarterback room. And certainly some of those guys are going to be on different rosters by the end of training camp when they start making cuts, because they're not keeping 5 guys. That's for sure.
Does it matter in this case? And I know the ridiculousness of it. We're going to keep talking about it anyway, because that's what we do here. Does it matter at all that he made the choice to watch the program and he could have simply turned it off and avoided some of the distress?
Well, I think that certainly could be an argument kind of woven within part of the previous piece of the discussion, where this is not an intentional showing from the NFL to this Mr. Doe particularly. Yes, I think that is a piece of this. If he's so distraught, change the channel, realizing that this is a sporting event. This is not a life or death scenario. This isn't him watching, someone have to get fried twice on the electric chair when they didn't die the first time or something. Or this, I mean, there's an extreme example from actual some things that have happened in the past. But no, I think that's a good point, but it shouldn't even get to that level.
Yeah.
That's Bob Williams of Williams Law. If you, or maybe somebody you love, is facing litigations, you have questions about your big day in court, Bob and his team would love to sit down with you, walk you through a free, no obligation legal consultation, and get you ready for your big day in court. Bob, we appreciate your time tonight. We'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, gentlemen. Have a good one.
Thanks, Bob.
We'll be right back at the other side of the break. We do have breaking news in the House settlement. There are some changes that I think a lot of people around here have been waiting for. We'll tell you what those are. We come back to the social media soundbite. The other side of the break, 1620 The Zone. Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here for Pepper Jack's Grill. 10 great locations throughout the Omaha area, but you already knew that. Did you know that there are new updates on Pepper Jack's menu? What does that mean? It means you can add something next to your Philly. It doesn't have to be the delicious fries. We know how good they are, but you have other options now. Maybe you're more of an onion ring person. Those are on Pepper Jack's menu. They've also added jalapeno poppers and cheese curds. You can just get all 3 of the new sides by themselves. You don't have to get an entree, but you know you're going to want to. Make sure you grab some spicy ranch on the way out the door. It's so good, it should be illegal to sell. It's Pepper Jack's Grill, 10 great locations. Stop by and grab dinner tonight. there is breaking news. John Schreiner, what do we got?
There is a big update in the House versus NCAA settlement. You thought this was coming, and here it comes.
I thought you were going to do the
indeed.
voice.
I'm not doing the voice.
Oh.
No, we're not doing the voice.
We've got breaking news.
Yes, grandfathering roster limits has been added to the brief. A new brief was filed today in the Northern District of California, and it goes something like this. There will be a grandfather plan, so athletes who had their positions cut are eligible for reinstatement, and it also permits athletes who left or were not retained by their current school to keep their grandfather status at a new school. So if they were cut and they went somewhere else, they are exempt from any roster limits during the duration of their career. It includes current athletes cut for next year and high school seniors who've been promised spots for next year but had those positions withdrawn. So anybody who got cut, you're back in the game, baby.
But it does look like the one thing that is coming is roster limits to all sports.
Yeah.
The House versus NCAA settlement proposed rosters include 105 for football. Men's and women's basketball will get 15 scholarship roster spots each. Baseball will hold 34, which is an increase, and men and women's soccer also getting an increase with 28. Softball at 25, and volleyball with an increase as well, up to 18. So schools around the country are starting to prepare for the changes coming into effect, and it's because a lot of us, I know we've had the discussion about, well, this person's going to go to this school, there'll be another spot, or they'll drop down to FCS. There are going to be student athletes out there that are just left holding the bag if they weren't grandfathered in and not have a chance to go elsewhere and lose the possibility of a free education that they were offered.
So now, if they're these players who were cut because they're grandfathered in, the schools who pick them up are going to have incentives to keep them because they're exempt now. So you can have all these players who were cut from other teams on your roster and they don't count against your roster limit.
Yeah.
So
springing this on, listen, and nobody's going to feel bad for the multi-million-dollar institutions making all this money, but the kids that are getting left out in the cold are the ones, the only people that are going to be the victims in this situation.
Yeah, always. This was always going to affect the athletes more than it was the schools. And I think this is the right thing. This is the right thing to do because the players who were on those rosters before this decision was handed down really didn't have much say in it. They didn't get to decide whether or not the roster limits were fair or, and it wasn't really taken into consideration how it would affect the individual student athlete, right? So I think this is the right thing to do. I think it does right by the student athletes, and there's some benefit to be had out there for teams who want to pick up these guys who were left off of rosters. And
it's letting coaches honor their word too, right?
Yeah.
And that's been the big discussion around the transfer portal is, well, we let coaches do it all the time. Well, not all coaches just leave guys out to dry and go to other schools. Some of them want to uphold their word and live up to the promises that they made, and this is allowing them to do that. And give you 365 days to prepare for it as well.
Yeah, and so now these players who were affected by the cuts, they don't count on anyone's roster limit for the duration of their career. So for the next 4 or perhaps 5 years, you're going to have teams who are over the 105. And it's not going to be even across the board.
No, which is going to be the interesting part. How do you manage that?
Are we going to see teams load up on these players from this year that have no limit in the players that are class of 26, class of 27?
I want to make sure I understood that correctly. They have to basically go back to the school that they're at.
They do not.
Right? No. Okay.
They are exempted at their new school if they've enrolled in a new school.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Which makes you wonder if Matt Rule regrets doing the the scrimmage the other day.
Yeah.
Listen, this is the right thing to do because asking these kids to find a new home with these restrictions and not really having answers is just unfair to only the student athletes, and asking 18 to 24-year-olds to hold the bag for the millions of dollars that the institution is making doesn't help anybody. Hey, if you missed the segment or any of the first hour, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It was brought to you by our friends at Pixel Fire Marketing. If you're the decision maker in your own company, but you haven't started your Google business profile, maybe you're not showing up at the top of search engine optimization, you can have that fixed by Pixel Fire Marketing. Head over to pixelfiremarketing.com, work with Dan and the crew to build you a website, put you at the top of SEO, and make sure that you have a social media presence. Check out pixelfiremarketing.com for more details today. Akron football. Are they good? We'll debate.
No.
Let's break. 6-12.
So you think you'll take another piece of me to satisfy?
Hey, everybody. John Schreiner here for Paul Davis Restoration. You know what time of year it is? It's storm season. We've had a couple of them already. And if you were affected by any of those storms adversely, i.e., water in the basement, the words no homeowner ever wants to hear, then you need to call 402-553-0373. Get Paul Davis Restoration out, and they will fix your home up to the condition it was in before that damage ever happened. You got problems with mold. You're worried about a leaky basement. You got some cracks in the foundation. Not to worry. Paul Davis is here for you. They've got your basement, your home, the water damage in mind. They'll get it fixed up. All you got to do is call the number 402-553-0373. It's Paul Davis Restoration.
the second hour here on 16th Foot Zone, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. Over a decade of being number one in Omaha doesn't happen by accident. Head over to pyramidroof.com. Book a free estimate for your windows, your roof, your gutters, your siding. They do it all. Check out pyramidroof.com. Tonight, it's time for Buy or Sell with Brody Heidemann sitting shotgun tonight. What do we got, Brody?
Hey, Brody's got his last day of high
Hey,
school tomorrow.
one more day.
Way to go,
Come
Brody.
on.
One more day. One more day.
Yeah,
Come
buddy.
It's all downhill from here, buddy.
You know who doesn't have one more day? Utah quarterback Cam Rising.
Ooh,
Oh,
shots
well
fired.
Officially
done.
retired from football.
Well done.
He would have been in his 8th season of college football. I would have been 10 years old
Uh-huh.
when he started college football. Buy or sell.
You guys
this
would
was
have
the
both been
right
in
move.
college at the same time next year,
Yeah.
by the way.
Buy or sell. This is the right move by Rising.
Listen, I mean, he's had a significant injury 7 of his 8 years of playing college football.
Not good.
I think everybody was kind of hoping he did this last year, actually, for his well-being. He got injured again. I mean, it's good for Utah, that's for sure. They could
Yeah.
finally kind of move on without him. But no, I mean, it sucks. I mean, having to walk away for something that's not something you caused or you can help is always terrible. So I'm happy he's decided to do it and taking care of his body. He's got 2 degrees, is what you should in 8 years of school. Listen, I wish the best for him. I think he's a guy that could have a future in TV too. Really well-spoken kid. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it's the right move. Not only just for him, but as you said, for Utah. It's time for them to be off the hook for this. You know what I mean? It's just got to be a new era for Utah football. They can't keep waiting around to see if he's going to get healthy, to see if it's ever going to be the Cam Rising of old. They've just got to move on, and everybody's got to move on. So yeah, it's the right decision, and I think it's the best for both parties.
Buy. It's such an easy buy. It's 8
Mhm.
years of college football is too much college football for one person to play in.
For anybody.
I think it's good that Cam Rising is actually hanging it up and is saying, you know what, I keep on getting injured and I don't foresee that stopping anytime soon. And I think probably too, he saw the writing on the wall that he was like, I'm basically as old as the majority of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I think it might be time to retire the dream.
Yeah, super easy buy. I actually saw something. Apparently, he's going to be the offensive coordinator at his alma mater high school. I think it's like Newberry Park or something like that.
Interesting.
So I like Jimmy's point though. I think he would be a very good broadcaster. He's a well-spoken guy, but I think it's the easiest buy ever. Do you know who doesn't have a 4.0 GPA like myself?
Ooh.
Akron football, who has been handed a postseason ban after posting an academic progress score of 914. You need a 930 to maintain academic eligibility. The Zips have been handed practice restrictions last year after posting a 920 a year ago.
So they went even further down the
Yeah.
list, by the
Yep.
way.
Buy or sell, this makes sense in the 2025 world of college football.
Well, it's nice to see that somebody's actually adhering to the NCAA's policy, but only 4 teams over the last decade have fallen below academic eligibility, and that being New Mexico State and LSU during the pandemic in 2020, which is kind of understandable.
Yeah.
And then what I think
and they
is
gave waivers to those teams during the pandemic
correct.
as well.
But here's what I think is going to happen to Akron is exactly what happened to Idaho. They just said, we're not going to adhere to your policies, and we're just going to join the FCS.
Yep.
And they chose to leave Division I college football.
Which robbed us of the Kibbe Dome.
We talk a lot about relegation in college football, and does it need it? Does it not? And I kind of wonder with stuff like this, it may just be a way out as well.
Yeah.
So I listen. I sell just because this is the only version of college football that still feels like college athletics. Is
So
when
you
things
say it
like-
doesn't make sense?
doesn't make any sense. We're not asking anybody else to play by the rules. All the rules that existed previously, like not paying players, are gone. We're not asking kids to get degrees and leaving after 3 years. They could leave after 3 years.
We were never asking them to get
I
degrees.
agree. But if that's the case, why should why should it matter?
Well, I buy that it makes sense because it's still collegiate football. You're still associated with a university. There still is an academic eligibility component to this whole thing. And until someone sues the NCAA to remove that, you still have to operate under those protocols. Like, absolutely, it makes sense. And if Akron can't get its house in order when it comes to academics, they don't deserve a bowl game. Not that they would make one anyway.
Yeah, it
or
just
have in the last 9 years.
it doesn't feel right that we would just ignore the academic portion of it. But kind of, I guess,
Ooh,
Kind of feels like we're doing it though, right?
yeah.
yeah, it's like it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense at the same time. So I'm going to sell because it doesn't make sense. It feels like with the way that everything is going, and especially at a school like Akron, where it's like
They're not
Yeah.
winning anyway.
you're playing D1 football, but are you really playing like D1 football in the same regard that like the Big Ten and the SEC are? And you know that at some point they're getting overlooked for probably some similar academic standard type stuff, but
Are they?
Eh,
Are they?
maybe.
I
Just
don't
a
know.
reminder that so it will
I
not
don't
help.
think that they are.
It will not help Akron's bowl eligibility when they beat Nebraska this year.
That would be great. I think it's just a little confusing, but also I think it makes sense in today's world, like Jimmy said, where everything is just kind of break the rules.
There are no
bend-
rules.
Break the rules, bend the rules, anarchy, let everything go loose.
It's not anarchy.
It's not
though.
anarchy, but it's also
Kind of anarchy.
yeah, it's on the verge of anarchy.
I don't know what that means, but I love it.
The Jacksonville Jaguars
You're all wrong.
have released Gabe Davis on Wednesday. They signed him away from the Buffalo Bills on a 3-year, $39 million contract. They parted ways with the wideout, and buy or sell, Davis can make a difference in the NFL again.
I have kind of bought in on this theory, pun intended, that if you play for the Carolina Panthers, the Jacksonville Jaguars, or the Cleveland Browns, you could still be good somewhere else.
Well.
So I think, like, listen, with Josh Allen throwing you the football, Gabe Davis looked like a game changer. I think he could be that some form of that wide receiver again if he gets put in the right system with the right quarterback throwing the ball to him. I don't take any player playing for the 3 teams that I listed with anything other than a grain of salt. So I still think Gabe Davis could be a quality NFL wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree. I think he can still be a piece. I think that there's a role out there for him. It obviously didn't work in Jacksonville, but maybe he goes back to Buffalo. Maybe he goes to the
True.
Steelers are looking for another wide receiver now. So there's probably a place for him, and there's probably a place where he can have moderate success somewhere.
How long does Travis Hunter get stuck in obligatory?
You mean purgatory?
Purgatory, excuse me. Yeah, that was the wrong word. Purgatory in Jacksonville before he leaves.
I don't know. I think Travis Hunter's good enough to overcome all that stuff.
I don't know if anybody is. Trevor Lawrence can't do it. I don't know.
Mr. Easter Island head. Gabe Davis can definitely, though, be a game changer on someone's roster. There are a lot of spots in the NFL for that kind of talent to flourish, and I think Gabe Davis still has that kind of talent.
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville is just not a place where it had the ability to flourish because they're trying to force feed Kirk all day, every day. And Gabe Davis really didn't see the ball in the same clip that he was in a Buffalo. So, I could see him going somewhere else and still having a little bit of that magic left in the old tap dancing shoes.
I think it was it 2 or 3 years ago, the AFC Championship game where he went crazy on Kansas City. If he can be if even half of that in another place with a better system, maybe, then I buy. The ACC has trimmed its men's basketball conference schedule from 18 to 20 to make more room for marquee non-conference games. Buy or sell, we will see this being a trend.
I sell. I think this is something unique to the ACC, trying to make things happen. The interesting thing about this is they're definitely not going to be playing round robin because there's no way that the Dukes and the North Carolinas of the world, or the main rivalries in that conference, are only playing each other one time a year. So you're not going to play everybody in your conference. And how is that going to work out at the end of the season? It's going to be really interesting to see. And then I think it's going to be kind of a disaster. So I don't see anybody else following suit.
A trend. Do I see it becoming a trend? More marquee regular season matchups? Yeah, I kind of do. I think that.
But sacrificing conference games to do it?
Well, look, conferences are so big and unwieldy right now, the way it is. Nobody can play every team in their conference twice anyhow. You're going to have to figure out some weird tiebreaker stuff no matter what now.
Sure.
So I think that, yeah, if we're going to do weird tiebreakers, let's go all in on that. Let's just have some big games in the midseason. I think you're going to see other conferences join in with the ACC and doing something of this nature. They need a partner for it.
Yeah, I would think just from we want money and we want eyeballs on the product at all point in
Mhm.
time, it makes sense that it would trend in this direction to have, as many non-conference games as you possibly could, especially ones that are actually good.
Good.
Yeah, I would love this.
Yeah.
Give me like wild.
But do you think it's a
non-conference games,
trend?
though.
That's
I do.
the question.
Part of me wonders how much this is to do with the Players Era Festival and NIL tournaments and getting more
A midseason
opportunities-
NIL tournament
more opportunities to make your players more money.
could be.
Could be the trend. The Pittsburgh Steelers, after signing DK Metcalf, have now traded George Pickens. They also still don't have a quarterback. Buy or sell
But
to anyone.
you stop disrespecting Mason Rudolph.
Hey,
They'll swing a helmet at you.
yeah. Buy or sell that anyone has any idea what the hell the Steelers are doing.
Brody, language. You're not even out of high school yet.
Yet.
One more day.
Listen, it feels like they're just holding out for the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes. So I think the Steelers have an idea what they're doing. I don't think they're going to like the outcome of what they're doing, because if you're right, you get Aaron Rodgers, and that makes it a plus for you. But the negative is you get Aaron Rodgers,
Yeah.
and I don't know if that's going to end up being a plus for you. So no, I don't think. I think they know what they're doing. I don't think they know what they actually want out of the situation.
Well, let me posit something else for you on the opposite side.
Tanking for Arch Manning.
I
It's not
think
gonna-
trading George Pickens is an indication that Aaron Rodgers isn't coming. Because if you're getting Aaron Rodgers,
True.
don't you want to put
As many weapons.
as many
around him.
weapons around him as possible? I think so. I would think that would be the case. If you believe you're not getting Aaron Rodgers, let's burn it down and get draft capital and build for next year. That's what it indicates to me, is that Aaron Rodgers is not coming through that door and they are ready to move on to next year before this one's even started.
I sell. No one has any idea what the hell the Steelers are doing.
Yeah.
You think
I-
Mike Tomlin's just trying to tank to get a top 10 quarterback pick for the first time
Probably.
in his career?
Mason Rudolph can throw the ball. Like physically, he is able to
that is
do it.
true.
Yeah. Everyone
It doesn't, you don't know
So
where
can
you don't know where it'll end up, but
Looking for a payday?
sign with Pittsburgh. Hey, Mike Tomlin seems like he might have his finger on what they're doing, but I can understand trading away George Pickens like as a general concept.
He's headed to Dallas. I can't remember if we mentioned that or not.
Yeah.
Yes, he is headed to Dallas. Yippee-ki-yay. Good job, Jerry. But
I think it's
I
a great
like-
job, actually.
I like the fact that they traded George Pickens. He has kind of been all over the map, like mentally and physically lately, just like crashing out in mid game and like trying to get into fights as much as he can with the opposing team, his own team,
Sounds about right.
his
Any-
offensive coordinator,
Anybody standing
the
there?
head coach, the goalposts. Like,
So
he just
is that
does
an
not like
indication
the world?
that Aaron Rodgers is coming then?
That's what-
Because those two
Mhm.
in the same locker room
And DK Metcalf.
would be great for television. It
I-
would be bad for everybody else.
I think the last remaining hope for this year is that they're holding on to a potential trade for Kirko Chains.
that's a good point. I think, I don't know. Kirko Chains is worth a lot of money right now, too. Is
He
the
is.
problem.
Well,
That's-
they just offloaded a
That's
number two
Kirk
wide
Cousins
receiver.
for everybody not in the know, by the way. All right, if you
Interesting.
missed Spire Salt tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/after hours 1620. It was brought to you by Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear. Listen, they've been dressing Omaha for over 50 years. They've been doing it on the golf course, but they've been doing it for the biggest day in your life as well. I got my wedding suit at Jerry Ryan. Dan Campen got his wedding suit at Jerry Ryan. If you want to be the best dressed guy at your wedding, or maybe you want to show up the groom at somebody that you don't like's wedding, you can do that by stopping by 78th and Dodge. Have Dan, John, Deanne, Monier, the Taylor, and Jake get you ready for the big day. Make sure you're the best dressed guy in the room. Head over to Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear. They've been dressing Omaha for over 50 years. The Hockey Corner is back, and we've got a good one in Canada. We come back, 1620 Zone.
Five-star Betty, you got to beat the other clown. I work with pain like a chisel.
724 on a Wing Wednesday edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by our friends at Pyramid Contractors. Over a decade of being number one in Omaha doesn't happen by accident. Check out pyramidroof.com. Get a free estimate for your windows, your roof, your gutters, your siding. They do it all. Check out pyramidroof.com tonight. It's time for the Hockey Corner.
Yes, it is.
John, take her away.
All right. We are into the second round, full tilt. Caps lost last night. Boo-hoo. But
All is right in the world, many are saying.
listen to me now. I was actually encouraged by that loss to Carolina, and here's
Ooh.
why. Washington played about as bad as I have seen them play at any point this season. They were awful. Like, they were bad. And still held a 1-0 lead midway through the third period. And so I don't necessarily feel bad about the loss. It sucks to lose game one, but to play as bad pretty much as you have the entire postseason, like no doubt as bad as you have the entire postseason, and to still be up 1-0 halfway through the third, I'm not at all worried. I think they can still win this series pretty easily.
Well, I'll point out, John. Game one is the game you want to lose.
Yeah, it's a good
You
point.
got the whole 7-game series
Yep.
sitting out in front of you. And that game last night, especially for the Caps, that was a gut check because they had to lose one. They were kind of, on the streak of like playing really good, scoring a lot. And I think they're going to have a better plan tomorrow night for that Hurricanes defense to try and actually get some more
Ooh.
shots in the net.
Almost had a fight.
And
Sorry.
then the game last night with Edmonton and Vegas, honestly, the way Edmonton played in round one, I was concerned.
Yeah, they probably should have lost that series. I can't believe they won it in 6 games.
Yeah, down 2-0, won 4 straight. But the momentum appears to be with the Oilers right now.
Yes,
I mean,
it does.
th-
By
they-
far.
And they fell behind the Golden Knights 2-0 in that game and then won 4-2. So to win in Vegas in game one, good things for the Oilers. McDavid and Draisaitl looked incredible last night. They put them on the same line a bunch, which they don't do
Ooh.
except for power play.
Yikes.
And look, I might have to. I thought Vegas would win this series. I'm starting to lean. I know it's early, but I'm starting to lean Edmonton now.
Yeah, if Edmonton keeps gaming it the way that they are, that's the scary thing. Is their coach has just been kind of game planning all throughout the entire postseason really well. And they like you said, John, they have the momentum. And really they're starting to find what works and what lineups they can throw out there and kind of just throw in as many possible ideas into the fire that they can. And right now it's all coming up roses for them.
So we got Leafs Panthers going on right now. It's tied 2 apiece, second period.
Chippy.
And then later tonight, Jets Stars. That one's interesting from the perspective that I don't know that the Stars should have won their series, and I don't know that the Jets should have either.
Well,
I
Evan
think
Rodriguez-
both were pretty fortunate to be in the second round.
Evan Rodriguez of the Panthers just got
He got destroyed.
put straight into the wall face first and hit the glass and then went to the ground. And then a couple guys went to the ground fighting because they felt like it was a cheap shot.
Yeah, that's not good. That's
Yeah.
boarding.
Yeah, that's illegal. And his teammates rallied around him and a fight broke out between about 3 guys. Rodriguez went back to the locker room, so we'll have to keep an update on that. We're going to keep an update on Creighton basketball with John Walker. We come back at the other side of the break. If you missed our hockey corner tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It was brought to you by Controlled Comfort Heating and Air. Are you looking for a new job? Controlled Comfort is hiring at a high rate right now. Whether you've got a ton of HVAC experience or none, and you're just looking for a new career, head over to controlledcomfort.com. Work with Steve and Tony and the guys, and get a new career at Controlled Comfort today. We'll be right back talking with John Walker of the Omaha World Herald right here on 1620 The Zone.
People shouldn't change if they innocent. People act strange when it's getting out of breed.
Hi there, folks. Dan Campanen here once again to remind you the Pepper Jack's Grill has 10 great local locations. And as some lady yelled at me from her car today, she said, "Hey, aren't you that hot guy who always orders a steak gunner Philly with all the vegetables, including the jalapeno juice?
That's him.
And always reminds me about the great French fries that Pepper Jack's has?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am. And you can go and get one right now at any of their 10 great local locations. So why don't you try some Pepper Jacks tonight?"
Stepped out of my zone. I had to get out alone and figure it out on my own. And I know what I really want now. Can't stop me.
7:33 on a Wednesday night edition of the After Hours Launch, brought to you by Bellevue University and our friends at Pyramid Contractors. If you're looking to have your roof replaced, maybe you've been affected by seasonal storms, head over to pyramidroof.com tonight. John Walker from the Omaha World Herald now joins us via the phone. John, good evening. How are you?
Man, I'm good. It's been a couple of quiet days around Creighton for the first time in what feels like forever. So I've taken a deep breath the last 48 hours or so. How are you?
Since there's not a whole lot of news, we need some life advice from you.
Okay.
Tomorrow is Brody Heidemann, our intern producer's
Yes.
last day of high school.
Mm-hmm.
What
Okay.
piece of advice do you give to him in his last day of high school?
Dude, whatever you want in life, you can have if you work for it. Promise.
All right.
There you
I
go.
like that.
He's already a world famous radio star, so he's kind of already halfway
Huge
there.
role.
So.
Exactly.
Hey, like you mentioned, it's been quiet because Mac and Alan Huss talked on Monday. What did you make of Mac talking about kind of recruiting, expecting Fedor not to be here next year?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because I personally am still optimistic that Fedor gets cleared because there's just a lot out there about these international kids getting an extra year of eligibility. Like, for example, I know that Fedor isn't like most international prospects because he played in the EuroLeague and whatnot at such a young age. But like Illinois is building a team full of 22-year-olds, 23-year-old international players, and they're all eligible, you know? So something has to happen. I'd imagine that if Fedor was able to get cleared last season, that he's got a pretty strong case to get cleared again, I would think. So yeah, it was interesting to hear Mac talk about that. So that would obviously mean that Creighton now has 2 roster spots left. And guys like Hudson Greer and Austin Swartz, for the time being, have that much more opportunity on the table. And obviously it would mean that Creighton is still heavily on the recruiting trail with 2 spots left to fill. So yeah, I thought it was interesting, to say the least.
Sticking with the Fedor situation, for him personally, and obviously you're not speaking for him, but if you had
Sure.
to guess, like, what's the motivation for him to keep at it and keep fighting this and going through this whole process?
Yeah, I one think he really loves it at Creighton. Like he told me last year when we talked before the season that if he was going to make a move of such magnitude to leave home, to come to the States and play ball, it had to be the right place. And obviously he found that with Creighton. He's not the only one. I mean, you guys have talked to some of the new guys who have mentioned, part of the reason they came to Creighton is because of the connection that they established that you don't find a lot in the portal, because it's essentially speed dating in this day and age. And Creighton's able to make those connections quickly. They did it with all their portal guys this year. They did it last year with Fedor Zugic. And so that's part of it. And then the other part, guys, is he had tried the early NBA draft process a couple of times and withdrew. And so I think he realized that something wasn't working. And so he said, oh, well, what if I go do this and try a new opportunity? And obviously we've seen how much success some of these international prospects have had when they've come and played a year or 2 of college, and then their draft stock shoots up. So it seemed like that was the hope and trajectory for Fedor. It would be really, really, really unfortunate if for whatever reason he wasn't cleared for next season. But I know that he wants to be, and so we'll just kind of see what happens over the next few months.
What did you make of Mike Nesbitt coming to Creighton with Alan Huss? Were you surprised to hear that news?
Well, not really, because I think NCAA legislation made way to have an extra coach on the recruiting trail this year. And so obviously you lost Ryan Miller.
Yeah.
And you replace him with Alan Huss. Well, then you still have a spot, right? And so, yeah, you bring Mike Nesbitt, and kudos to Greg McDermott for that, really, because it was kind of rewarding Huss in a way for taking such a leap of faith at this point in his career, and not that High Point to Creighton is not a step up, right? But in the immediate future, Alan Huss went from being a head coach with, as he said, 30 plus wins on the table next year, back to an assistant, back to an associate head coach, which is a big change. Even if he is the one set to take over when Greg McDermott retires. So it was cool to see Mac kind of reward Huss in that way by saying, hey, we can bring an extra guy in. I want you to bring that guy in because you kind of took a chance on coming back to Creighton.
This news just hit our radar about an hour ago, and we talked a little bit about it. But the new proposal for rosters under the House settlement, men's and women's basketball get a limit of 15 players. Do you think that's the right number? How do you feel about 15 players on a college basketball roster?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if you could really. I don't know if you could really field more than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
15's pretty deep. So yeah, I think that's perfect, especially with just kind of where the landscape is now. Like there's so many paths to be one of those 15 on a high major roster, whether that's through JUCO, whether it's whether it's a thing like Overtime Elite, whatever that is. There's so many paths to get to a 15-man roster really anywhere. So yeah, 15 probably right.
We ask you this a ton when the season's over, but obviously it's going to slow down around the Jays program for a while. What's on the docket for John Walker this summer?
Yeah, I'm writing an Ed Service story tonight and early tomorrow. That'll be out Friday morning. A sneak preview of that. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, really. This is the last home series of Ed Service, 23 years at Creighton. Nearly 30 years at Creighton when you count his time as an assistant. And he'll have to find a new routine here in a month or so when the Jays are done playing. So, but for this weekend, he's going to savor every last bit of ball that he has left at Charles Schwab Field. Other than that, just the run-of-the-mill stuff, we'll have the College World Series coming up, and obviously the Creighton news never stops.
What are you looking forward to the most of your second year at the CWS?
Seeing me in the press box.
Probably, probably the food.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
The baseball's fun, but we started something at the World Herald last year where we did like food reviews for our website.
Okay.
And I did a couple of those, and I loved them. So hopefully we run that back and do it again this year.
What was the highlight of the food review from a year ago for you personally?
Probably. The ground crew tachos.
Dude, yes.
Good call.
Yeah, it was a bed of nachos, barbecue sauce, sour cream drizzle, brisket.
It's got the lightning sauce on there.
Yeah, it was like pickled onions, jalapenos, all that stuff. They were fire.
So good.
I can't believe we've never asked you this question, but obviously not an Omaha native. What's your favorite Omaha restaurant since you've moved up here?
Okay, so that's tough, man. If we're talking about like,
you got to pick one. It's got to be like an Omaha native restaurant.
Yeah, like the Caddy Shack is good. I'm
Okay.
a like burger kind of bar food type of guy. So Caddy Shack, that's kind of out near the World Herald offices out west. So that's an easy and frequent stop. As is Oscars for some wings, Charlotte wings. And I'm a big fan of sit down wise. My girlfriend and I went to Jay Gilbert's last summer.
Oh yeah.
And
I don't know anybody that's not a fan of that. Have you tried Cunningham's wings yet?
No, I have not. And I'm always open to food recs. So everyone who has them, send them my way.
If you're a big fan of smoked wings, we are a little partial to them around here. My personal favorite wings in town.
Yeah, they're great.
Good to know.
John, we appreciate you. We'll catch up with you next week, and hopefully we got something exciting to talk about in the Creighton ranks. If not, we'll talk more food.
I'm sure we will. Thanks, guys.
That's John Walker from the Omaha World Herald. Subscribe to Omaha.com today or follow him or do both at by John Walker on Twitter as well. If you missed his segment, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It was brought to you by AX Plumbing. Home or residential, they can do it all. Check out axpservice.com for your plumbing, water heater, gas piping, or backflow prevention issues. AX Plumbing is locally owned and operated. They'll leave your home or business cleaner than they found it. Check out axpservice.com today. We'll give you our hot takes, wrap up the show. We come back 1620 zone.
Hey, everybody. John Schreiner here for Cunningham's Pub and Grill. Are you like John Walker? Have you not yet tried Cunningham's smoked wings? Why don't you listen to us? We've been telling you about this forever. It's Wing Wednesday, and you know what that means. Get on your social media machine, retweet the video of Cunningham's delicious wings. You will be entered into a $25 drawing for a gift card. No, you don't have to pay $25. You get the $25 for nothing for pressing a button. That's all you have to do. And those delicious wings could be yours for the price of nothing. So get on your Twitter, retweet the video. You're entered in the drawing. That's how Wing Wednesday works. You're not going to be disappointed. I promise you that. Even if you don't win, you should stop in, especially the Blackstone location, parking garage right across the street now. Get some blueberry sriracha, get some 4-alarm, get a burger, get the BLT bites, get everything. Order the entire menu. Look, it's May now, and your New Year's resolutions, they're long gone. Big rear view mirror action for that one. Go with the best wings in town. Cunningham's Pub and Grill, 2 locations. We recommend the Blackstone location because all you got to do is walk right across the street with those 2 free hours of parking. Cunningham's Pub and Grill. Get in on Wing Wednesday.
It is closing time inside the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. If you're looking for a free estimate for your roof, your windows, your gutters, your siding, they could do it all. Head over to pyramidroof.com and get that free estimate tonight. It is time for our Papillion Sanitation Trash Takes of the night. What we do here is we'll all give you a hot take. We'll put a poll up on Twitter. You'll vote for who had the best take. Whoever receives the fewest amount of takes will have the trashiest take of the night. We'll start off with Brody Heidemann.
You know, we were just talking about our Yankees, and it got me thinking. I've seen a lot of people talking about it lately. Aaron Judge, is he already a top 10 Yankee in the history of all
Ooh.
Yankees ever, all time? I think he's a top 10 Yankee. I think that the resume speaks for itself. I mean, he does not have a championship yet. I think that could possibly boost him up into the top 5, but I think top 10, the he's the best power hitter we've seen in the past.
Maybe
What?
ever. Maybe
Possibly,
ever?
if you,
By the time he's done.
non-steroid era.
All right, Brody.
He's a top 10.
This Yankees blog, Pinstripe Alley.
Mm-hmm.
You think Aaron Judge is better than any of these guys? Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, Lou Gehrig, Derek Jeter, Joe DiMaggio, Yogi Berra, Mariano Rivera, Whitey Ford, Bill Dickey, Andy Pettit. Alex Rodriguez doesn't even make the top 10 Yankees.
Alex Rodriguez is in a top 30 Yankee, in my opinion.
He's number 11 on this list.
He's not even a top 30
Was he
Yankee.
better than Bernie Williams? Better than Don Mattingly?
Mhm.
Aaron Judge is 16th on this list.
Better than Reginald Jackson.
I was going to say, I'm waiting for you to get to Mr. October. I don't have him in the top 10. I think 16's probably right.
Whatever. I think he's top 10.
You can't be a top 10
He's-
Yankee without a World Series.
That
man.
is true.
You can't. You just
That
can't.
is true.
Especially for a franchise that has 27 rings and you don't have one of those said
But-
rings.
Sadly, when was our last? And
Yeah,
I-
it's 2009.
That's the hard thing to look at, is when was our last?
Good.
Reggie Jackson's
So-
36.
Should never
I
happen
was
ever
going to
again.
ask where he was.
Wow, Dan.
He's 36.
That's a bad
Yeah.
list.
That
Dan
is
Campion.
a terrible list.
What's your hot
His
take?
nickname is Mr. October. Utah.
Ooh,
They have a hockey team.
Damn.
Oh, did I take your
Yeah.
take, John? My bad.
It's fine. I'll find a new one.
I know you would. They are now the Utah Mammoths.
Mammoth.
No, Mammoth.
Mammoth. Singular.
Singular.
Excuse me.
Utah Mammoth.
Utah Mammoth.
A
Terrible.
Stanford Cardinal.
Terrible, 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 terrible.
This is the opposite of my trash take.
It's horrible, it's terrible, and it should not be the name
Dan.
of a hockey team. I am fully on record on this show of saying when it was the Washington football team and they changed to the Washington Commanders, I said, that's dumb. Washington football team is a great name. Utah Hockey Club is a great name for a hockey team.
You just going to stick with yours then?
I'm going to stick with mine.
Name, hockey, it's where they play, what their sport is. I hate the name change to Mammoth. I understand it was a fan vote and the
Would
fans
you-
wanted it.
Did you want something else of the names that were up there?
No, I wanted Utah hockey.
Hmm.
It's great. I loved Utah hockey team. Utah Hockey Club, Utah Hockey. Yeah, it was perfect.
Well,
John,
mine's
Counterpoint.
slightly different. I think I mean I disagree. I think the name's good. But they did the colors and uniform unveil today.
I think it
And
looks sweet, by the way.
I am a big fan. I think they did a great job with the colors. The logo is spectacular. It's got so many hidden little elements in it.
Kind of looks like the Elkhorn North Wolf logo, by the way.
It does. I put that on Twitter. Big
did you?
Elkhorn North vibes.
Oh, did you? Oh,
Yeah.
all right, well, never mind.
But
I'll keep my original thoughts to myself.
so the mammoth, the tusk is in the shape of a U, Utah, right?
They thought it through.
The mammoth head has the outline of the Wasatch Mountains on it. Like
Very
very
cool.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the little shading area, one of the little highlights is the outline of the state of Utah broken up by an M shape, Utah Mammoth. It's very cool. They did a great job. The uniforms are great.
I had this
it's not what the Wasatch Mountains look like, by the way.
I had this theory 10 years ago or so when Chris Paul was moving seemingly every year in the NBA. I had this thought that the worst team in the NBA should get the best chances of the first lottery pick and Chris Paul. I thought we should just ship Chris Paul around to see if he could make the worst team better. I have a similar theory with baseball. I think we should just move the Tampa Bay Rays to a different city every single year.
Okay.
I think it would be great. I think you should send him to a minor league city for a season. Let him have him for a year and ship him out. I think it would give the lower TV markets a reason to give you inputted eyeballs on your product, and nobody wants to live and play for those Tampa Bay fans, all 17 of them that show up anyway.
Interesting concept.
If you missed any of the show tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com.
How many Rays are there in Omaha?
One. Well, sunshine.
The Zoo's got it.
The sunshine. They're sun rays now. They're not devil rays anymore. People
the
forget.
Zoo's got a couple.
People forget. Don't forget about our SoundCloud page at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It was brought to you by Allo Business. Allo's been empowering communities in Nebraska since 2003, and if they are given the opportunity to upgrade your business solutions, they will do so. They're going to give you cybersecurity, TV, data, and phone solutions as well. Check out the technology solutions at allobusiness.com tonight. For Dan Campen, Brody Heideman, and Jimmy Allen, happy graduation, Brody Heideman.
Nope. Other one.
Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here for Paul Davis Restoration. Look, you're looking outside right now. Maybe you're driving and hearing the sound of my voice, looking up and see the clouds rolling in. There's a possibility you're going to be affected by seasonal storms at some point this summer. And it doesn't have to be just on the outside of your house. Maybe you got some water building up in your basement. Maybe there's some mold and some mitigation you need to get rid of. You need to do it with Paul Davis. Call 402-533-0373. Let Paul Davis come out and restore your home to the way it was before you were affected by seasonal storms. Check out Paul Davis. Give him a call tonight at 402-533-0373 tonight.